I think it was a good idea in theory, but it's really bringing out the worst in some of these programs.
First up, we've got Penn State, Illinois. We're going to go through each of the games. Well, we got 3 games. First up, Penn State, Illinois. We got 5 minutes for each game.
Looking for some bigger prey. They're hungry for that bigger win, and this could be it. If they can take down Penn State. I said, nevertheless. Why did I say I said?
The former 3rd string, now 2nd string quarterback. And people on Twitter are talking. Should he be the starter now?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Big Ten Chatter on Team Rivalry. I am Cliff. With me, as always, is the commentator extraordinaire, the people's prognosticator, the angry pigskin himself, my firstborn son, Mackenzie. How's it going, Mac?
I want this week to be over.
It's a tough one. This is a tough week to get through.
It's a terrible week.
I'm telling you.
Terrible week.
Thanks to everybody out there joining us for this tough week, though, for sharing our love for football and for subscribing to the YouTube channel. That's pretty awesome. Our numbers are creeping up, and we love it. Also, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say, too, I don't know if we did this much as a family, but did we go like around the table and say, what are you thankful for at Thanksgiving?
Once or twice.
Once or twice. I remember my mom doing it, and it was awkward, but I think we did it a couple of times. Is there anything you're thankful for?
Man, it's awkward. I don't know. There's nothing that I'm thankful for.
Nothing at all. All right.
No.
Oh, were you about to say something? Oh, really? No?
No. I got nothing. I'm ready for the season to be over, man. I'm
right.
tired of all the nerves. The nerves this week of just
it's too much stress to be thankful.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm thankful that we have a show. So it's not often we get to say this, but we are about to close out an era. There's massive realignment in all of college football. The term Super Conference has entered into the lexicon, and the playoffs will include 12 teams next year instead of just 4. Old rivalries give way to new rivalries, and the driver for all of this is money, as it always is. You can't avoid it. It means college football, frankly, is more popular than ever, but it's not the same college football of years past, of even when I was a kid. And that comes with its good and bad elements. One of those controversial elements is NIL, and that's why I picked this for the topic this week. PJ Fleck has expressed some troubling aspects of NIL, which I found interesting because it goes along with what I've been saying about how college football is really becoming the minor leagues to the NFL, which I understand it kind of has been anyway, but it's different now with NIL. It's good for the athletes. It's not necessarily good for college football. If I could recap real quick, NIL allows players to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, the same as a professional athlete. It's like getting an endorsement as a professional athlete. It does not allow for pay for play. So a school cannot offer a salary or give a signing bonus. That's off the table. So there's a little more to it, but that's the gist. As you would expect, higher profile schools have more NIL opportunities. And if you want to maximize your NIL opportunity, you aren't looking for the schools you always wanted to play for as a kid, but rather the school with the most NIL potential, which, brings me back to PJ Fleck and how NIL is hurting college football. Here's the quote from PJ Fleck. But in the new NIL world, if you're not the leader in NIL and don't have the NIL funds, 1, you're not going to be able to keep your team intact, and 2, you're not going to be able to bring anyone in. Those are the facts of it. That's the facts of it. It's NFL free agency with no salary cap and no rules. That's the simple fact of it. So, Mac, the question on the table is NIL good for the sport? What do you think? What do you got?
So I think it was a good idea in theory, but it's really bringing out the worst in some of these programs. So like I think that the players deserved some sort of compensation, just given the dangerous state of the game and the amount of money that those players are generating for the networks and the schools. But now we have schools literally poaching players from other rosters. The transfer portal, as Fleck said, and I think you've said before, is basically turning into a free agency. And essentially, college football is turning into the NFL's amateur league, right?
Right.
So, and I don't necessarily dislike that because it kind of shows that there is a healthy love of the sport. Because, like you said, that means that it's more popular than ever if it's generating more money than ever.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, I don't know. Unfortunately, I guess everything has to change, and that means that because of that, this is no longer, your grandpa's college football. This isn't.
Right.
This is the new college football where, yeah, if you're some of these smaller schools, which apparently Minnesota falls into this, which is wild, but if you're one of these smaller schools that doesn't have the alumni base that like a Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, et cetera, have, then you're not going to have the NIL to keep your roster intact. And I know that like the rule says there's no pay for play, but stop. Like they're doing that. That is happening. Don't tell me that's not happening. Players have come out and said that other schools have offered them millions of dollars to transfer to their school. Okay.
Yeah, I hate to be a cynic, but it's hard to believe that that's not happening. It would be hard to believe that
Yeah.
that's not happening. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I already thought NIL was becoming a problem pretty quickly because at one point over the off season, I think it was, I read that Quinn Ewers, the quarterback for Texas, would actually, if he goes pro, might take a pay cut if he goes to the NFL in his rookie year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know necessarily how much he's making right now. I think that was based on a projection of his NIL worth, but the fact that that is even possible is wild. It's just wild.
I wonder if that creates an incentive then to be redshirted. Although if you're redshirted, you would think your NIL prospects would go down, but
No, not
I don't
necessarily
know.
because
All right.
he was on Ohio State's roster in 2020, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember when, but he was on Ohio State's roster and then transferred to Texas. And before he started a game, signed a multi-million-dollar NIL deal
Wow.
before he played in a game
Before
for
he played.
Texas.
Wow.
So,
All right. Well, okay. So then to go back to what you were saying, that's another one of Fleck's quotes from the press conference. It basically said what you just said, that if you want to keep players, all these guys we have, they want to be here next year. Just making sure everybody understands our fans and the good players won't be here. And that's because the NIL will pull them away through the transfer portal, which is another part of the
mhm,
issue. But then he goes on to say, we'll be a AAA ball club for somebody else. This is the reality and the truth of the situation. So PJ Fleck
yep,
is flat out saying what I just said, that college football with NIL has become the amateur or the minor leagues for the NFL,
yeah.
which should
And
be
how do you fix that?
right. And maybe it don't. Maybe that's just the future. That's college football from now on.
Mm,
I was actually talking to my brother, your uncle, the other day, and he had heard about an NFL or I'm sorry, a an idea for college football for the super conferences to become a way to spread them out so that they become an NFL style league. So you would have
hmm,
your two divisions or your two conferences with your divisions created by about 50 teams, and then essentially the bottom the bottom team, the bottom five teams would get cycled out. So it's kind of like oh, what do you call that?
relegation,
Uh,
right?
um, when you lose and then you're out of the game.
You're
You're
demoted.
demoted. Yeah, well,
Uh,
demoted is a good word for it. So
something.
you're demoted
Yeah.
out for the next season. And
Yeah.
so then you have your, basically, if we're going to divide the FBS into two leagues, you would drop down into the lower FBS until you could get back into the upper FBS, and then you could
Yeah.
play for the championship. But that's,
That's yeah.
yeah, that's sort of leading into one of the, and we got to do this in a future video, is how to lay out college football like the NFL. But that's one of the ideas floating around, and I mean, PJ Fleck's already talking about it out in the open, that this is where we're at.
And I honestly think that that's a great idea, as long as they also do what the NFL does, which is equal parts revenue sharing.
Yep.
So the NFL gives money to every single. The NFL actually operates as a cartel. It's really interesting because I took a sports economics class, and it's fascinating how it works. The teams all get money from their respective cities through tax dollars,
Mhm.
but then they also get a flat amount of money from the NFL. So it's the NFL takes all the revenue every year and then equally distributes it among all of the teams. So every team gets the same amount of money, and they should do, as long as college football does that same sort of thing. If they were to do the two-tiered CFB system with 50 team divisions, they
Yep.
need to figure out a way to do that. But that's a ton of teams, and that also
Right.
means that you're going to end up having like Western Michigan generate as much TV revenue as Michigan,
Right.
which is
If everything
wild.
levels out, yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange because you feel like it kind of diminishes the reason we love the sport. The reason I love college football is that rivalry, regional aspect to it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
really, as much as I want to say, oh, we got to keep that, it's already gone, and it's been gone for a few years now. So
Yeah.
it's like, at some point you just got to step up and say, well, this is what's happened. It's done. It's a done deal. There's no going back. So how do we move
Yeah.
forward on this? That, like you said, I appreciate that. NIL is good for the players because they've been, putting in their all for these schools, and for
Hmm.
the Big Ten itself, and then for the TV networks. Um, and then if they have a career-ending injury, they're just done.
Yeah.
At
There's no
There's
recourse.
no
Like,
recourse. So at least NIL gives them the opportunity, if they are looking for an NFL career and that career gets cut short from an injury their senior year of college, well, at least they've got something now to fall back on.
yeah.
And they can start again from there.
Mhm.
So I feel good about that. It's just that letting go of the old days and moving into the future here.
Yeah, and also figuring out a solution to this before you have teams going defunct too.
Right.
I mean, there is no way that, I mean, Western Michigan can keep their athletic program going based on the money that they get now, but they will never compete for anything worthwhile except for maybe a MAC championship, as long as the other MAC teams also go through the same thing that they're going through, which basically means that you're naturally dividing FBS into those two tiers that you're
Yep.
talking about.
Well,
So,
actually, but another idea on that is, maybe by splitting the FBS into two tiers, upper and lower FBS, it might give that second tier its own cult following. So
yeah,
maybe that second tier becomes, or returns to the old the old regional football, and now all of a sudden EMU doesn't have to play Michigan and Ohio State and Michigan State. They can just play MAC teams and other of the lower FBS teams, and maybe now EMU has a shot to build a halfway decent program relative to the lower FBS.
yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I don't know. Maybe somehow that provides a foundation that they could build on in the future, and then get to the top tier and actually compete. I have no idea.
Right.
I'm just kind of betting that what would happen is they would end up staying in that bottom tier, and you'll never get those matchups ever again. The matchups between, whoever's in the top tier and whoever's in the bottom tier,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
which maybe that's how it should be. I don't know, but I think it's kind of fun to see Michigan and Western play. I understand that it's a drubbing every single time, but
Yeah.
it's fun. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's always been the thing. It's always helped the schools. So when EMU shows up at the University of Michigan,
Mhm.
It's great for them. They get all of that exposure. They get the, the half the take there or whatever. They make a decent amount of money from it, so it's good for the school and it's good for the program. Just for the rest of us, it's
Yeah.
kind of a boring game, and it hurts Michigan's. It gives Michigan that lower, lesser strength of schedule, a
Yeah.
weaker strength of schedule. That seems like an oxymoron. Weaker strength.
Weaker strength. No, I get.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
but
works. I
that's what
think.
happens essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No,
so
you're right.
there's some give and take there, and I'll be interested to see how PJ Fleck follows up on this, or how they follow up on talking to PJ Fleck about it, if they'll get any more coaches to talk about it.
Probably.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I'm good.
You good? All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Big Ten Chatter. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, but this is what this show is: Big Ten Chatter. Thank you to everybody for watching. Have fun this weekend watching football. Mac. Oh, also happy Thanksgiving. Mac, take us out.
A very happy Thanksgiving from all of us. No, both of us at Team Rivalry. This is Big Ten Chatter.
Wait a minute. Both of
Har
us
har.
is all of us.
That's true. That's true. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a subscribe. It would mean a lot to us. Maybe even a like, possibly even a comment. Let us know your thoughts and all that. It would be really great to hear from you all. Have a great weekend watching football and enjoy watching football. Remember, hashtag make football fun again. This is Big Ten Team Rivalry.